Let's get Cory on the line. This is Cory Stapleton, right? The Secretary of State?
It is. Good morning.
Hey, thanks so much for calling in. It's a privilege to be able to talk with you this morning after what I assume was an eventful night for you.
It was kind of a long night, but it was enjoyable. Things went well.
So when you say it went well, what was the turnout? Was it anywhere close to what we expected, and any surprises or hiccups?
You know, it's interesting. We've got a longtime employee there at Secretary of State, Alan Miller, who's our election analyst. And earlier this week, I think 3 days ago, I asked him what the turnout would be, and he said it would be 55%, and I predicted 63%, and it was 54.22%. So,
so he's got his prices right numbers.
The dude knows his
spin
stuff.
the big wheel.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. And so, to answer your question, it was right on the projections of our office. Interestingly enough, almost same turnout as the 2014 general election. So this was a general election of 2017, similar to a non-presidential year general election numbers.
Almost identical, huh? Well, I was kind of curious. So there was a lot of stuff going on in the last day, obviously, after the assault incident. And a lot of people were having questions about what they can do, if anything, after they've cast a ballot. Is there any recourse for people in the future to know, if they're going to use the absentee ballot system, once they mail it in, is that the end?
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of where you got to push it back on people and say, why did you vote early? If you choose to vote before you have all of the information, then in Montana we vote only once. So you can't vote twice, or you can't change your vote. So I think the system works well, but what we've seen is that some people, by convenience, have gotten into the mode of casting their vote a month before they have all the information.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll cause some people to reflect. This was obviously a conversation we had previously in the legislature, where I was very much against forcing people to vote early. This is one of the reasons. There's many, but again, this is why teachers don't give out grades 30 days before the end of the class. That's why you don't give out trophies in sports a month before the season ends.
Or Nobel Prizes before you're president. Yeah. Well, never mind.
Except for that.
There's some exceptions to every rule, right? Well, real quick question, though, for you, Cory. One thing, my wife and I have a little conspiracy theory going around in the house, okay?
I love conspiracy theories.
We wait till the last minute to cast our ballots because we don't want to end up, with no information, and the last day some big stuff drops. Like literally someone could drop to the floor and an assault charge. My question for you, though, is this. We got all of these text messages. People knew that we hadn't cast our ballot yet. I mean, they were just flooding our phones. And I guess my question for you is, can people tap into the system and find out whether or not my ballot's been brought in? And how do they do that? If they
Yes. So it is kind of annoying to know that you're not as private as you think. People know when it's public information that you've received an absentee ballot, and they can track when those have been returned. And so there is some element of that, and they can purchase, they can buy those lists. Big data is here to stay, and I'm kind of the same way. It's a little annoying to be getting calls because there is some element of, all right, I'm just going to vote, so you'll leave me alone.
But how do they track the ballots? I mean, how do they know that my absentee ballot hasn't been sent back in or been received?
Well, they know who have gotten the absentee ballots, and they can have, they can go in locally. There's just that information is online. It's available.
It's out there. Huh? Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're gonna be harassed. You're gonna get mailers. You're gonna get calls. You're gonna get texts. We saw several of them, even in the 24 hours, the last 24 hours. That got kind of exciting. We saw some blanket ones. I don't know if they're from, the DCCC or groups that were supporting the Democrat, but they were pretty harsh, and they were being texted directly to people in our office just randomly.
So you're not exempt from this. You get the mailers and the
none of
texts
us
as well.
are.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, hey, would you mind holding through the break? I have one more quick question just about what the process is from here. If you could answer that after this quick break, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back in just a second. Not much time left with Cory. I wanted to ask you one quick question before you go, though, Cory. Basically, what is the process now? Do we have everything wrapped up, signed, sealed, and delivered as far as this election goes, or do you have other stuff? I know there's something called a canvas, right? You have to go through that still.
Right. Yeah, I will get with some of my colleagues, the other elected officials statewide, next week, and then we'll meet later in June to wrap up the official canvas. The nice thing about this election, it looks like we've got all the reports in, all of the voting is in 100%. So Gianforte won 50-46. So there's no recounts, there's no issues or contests. That we can just proceed pretty quickly. So for all practical purposes, he should be sworn in as quickly as possible, and we'll finalize it, dot the I's, cross the T's, and send him away.
So you said 50-46. The last I heard was 50-44. Has it changed this morning?
I'm sorry, 50-44.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You're right.
Gotcha.
50-44. Sorry about that.
I was like, well, this guy has the inside information.
Late night. Night.
I hear you.
We've all been up for like 20 hours straight. I got like 4 hours of sleep. So,
and then some jerk calls you out on the radio. Don't you want to body slam me? All
right.
Hey, I'll let you go. Okay.
That's all good.
All
Thanks,
right.
John.
Thank you for calling in, Cory.
We'll see you. Bye.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to go back to open phones. Now, I really want to hear from listeners. I have Adam Hertz, a representative from the Missoula area, here in the studio here with me, kind of filling in for Peter today. And I had a discussion with a young lady yesterday, a friend of mine, and she came up to me with her ballot, and she had it signed, and she had everything filled out. She was ready to go and vote for Greg Gianforte yesterday. But she said, John, I just... of course, she had heard about this whole attack and everything. She's like, I don't think I can cast this ballot the way that it is right now. And she told me that she was thinking about, actually, she asked me, what's my opinion? Is it unpatriotic to not cast my ballot? Because I don't want to vote for Greg after this incident, and I don't want to vote for the other guy. And I just feel like I don't want to cast my ballot. And I guess I wanted to get your take. Because there's a lot of Montanans out there that are already signed, sealed, and delivered their ballots and sent them into the mail, and we're not able to get them back. We heard from other people that were excited to vote for Greg Gianforte still, and some were even more excited after the assault incident. In a little bit here, I'm going to play Greg's apology, which I asked that he should do the other day. I think it was good that he did do an apology to Ben Jacobs, and I wanted to get your responses to that apology. I got a second now. I'm going to play that apology for you and get your responses to it. You can call us with your opinions at 721-1290. That's 721-1290. And CNN is going to be listening into the show today to try to catch some callers. So if you call in, you might get on national news. I got a lot of requests from those on the left that we have a more diversified listening audience. I just take the calls as they come in. 721-1290 is the number. If you want to call in with your opinion on the election yesterday, please do so. But especially I want to hear your opinion on Greg's apology. I have two of the cuts here. We're going to play them right in a row. Here's the first one. This is his apology to Mr. Jacobs.
Hard work is the way we get things done. And sometimes hard work is born out of hard lessons. Yes, last night, I learned a lesson. And no, please, I need to share something from my heart here, and I just ask you to bear with me. And when you make a mistake, you have to own up to it. That's the Montana way. Last night I made a mistake, and I took an action that I can't take back, and I'm not proud of what happened. I should not have responded in the way that I did. And for that, I'm sorry, Mr. Ben Jacobs.
All right, for the first one, what do you think? Adam, since you're here, did it feel genuine to you?
I thought it was a genuine apology. Obviously, some people would have wanted it sooner, but I thought it was a genuine apology, and I thought it was an appropriate apology.
I was one of those that said there should have been something that day. For him not to talk all day seemed a little out of place.
Right.
And to wait until the victory speech to do the apology. At least he did one. You know, I saw on Facebook a lot of people were criticizing him for giving the apology, saying that he should not have done it. He backed down, that he caved in some way by giving the apology. Now, of course, that vision of how you deal with a fault in maybe your campaign style is kind of similar to the way Trump did things. You rarely hear apologies out of Trump. And frankly, as a Montana guy, I'm very happy to see our politicians apologizing when they do things wrong. And I think that that's pretty clear that that's what happened here. But let's go ahead and take Greg's second apology, and then we're going to go straight to your phone calls, which our phone lines are all full. This is Greg's second apology. This one is to the people that voted for him, maybe like that woman that I talked to yesterday.
I'm sorry to each one of you that we had to go through this. That's not the person that I am, and it's not the way I'll lead in this state. Rest assured, our work is just beginning, but it does begin with me taking responsibility for my own actions. You deserve a congressman who stays out of the limelight and just gets the job done. I promise to work hard to protect our precious way of life.
All right, there we go. All right, we're going to go to a quick break. When we get back, we've got Art, then Bruce, then Marilyn, then Candy, then whoever is next, ready to rock and roll to talk on Talkback. We're going to go straight to callers who've been waiting patiently on the line. First up, we have Art. Thanks so much for calling in, sir. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning. I think it's important to remember the situation and recognize, who was the bully here. And it wasn't Greg Gianforte. We have conflicting reports on what actually happened. But have we seen this kind of behavior in him before? I don't think so. I mean, who does not feel that a bully needs to be stopped? And so many times the press can be bullied. And
well, let me ask you this: when you say a bully, so everybody that was at the scene, even Greg hasn't contested this, that the reporter did not touch Greg physically.
Okay, well, I haven't heard that. What I saw was the initial report that said that the reporter stuck a microphone in his face, would not back off when he was asked to go talk to another person and wait until Greg could talk to him later.
That's true.
Greg went to push the microphone away because the man was being obnoxious with it, and from there it is unclear exactly what occurred and who initiated, who touched who first.
We do. You just explained. Even in Greg's explanation, he goes to go for the phone. It's his hand that touches the reporter's hand at first. Now, that's not necessarily like a physical assault. Like if I shake your hand, it's not a physical assault. It depends on like the degree of force, right? So at that point, you're right. We don't really know what happened, but we do know a few things. First of all, we know that the sheriff's deputies that investigated filed charges against Greg and not against the reporter. We know that Greg has apologized for the incident, although he didn't tell us exactly what he is apologizing for. It seems that he also feels a little guilty about what happened and didn't feel like he took the right steps during that incident.
Well, be that as it may, I don't necessarily think that we can all stand in judgment on this whole thing, because we don't know exactly what happened. But I think as far as the principle goes, I don't see why people get all bent out of shape when somebody is being obnoxious and bullying, that you have to resort to some kind of forcefulness, whether it's pushing away a microphone and touching somebody and then having a reaction from it from whose ever side, I don't know. But who thinks that that's wrong?
We'll find out. We got more calls in the queue. Thanks for your call, Art.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bruce, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, guys. A great morning it is, let me tell you.
Beautiful.
What I don't understand is if this was at Gianforte's campaign office that this incident happened, that was private property. Why couldn't he have turned to one of his bodyguards or whatever and told him to throw the guy out?
I don't know. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. He did try to tell the guy to go talk to Shane. Talk to Shane. You could hear it in the original audio that was leaked.
Well, my other point I'd like to make out of this whole thing is we have so much national attention on us right now. The DNC, if they want to have any chance, they need to quit throwing up these name recognition empty candidates that would serve as nothing but bobbleheads for the DNC.
And I assume you're referring to Quist with that.
Yeah, he was. I think he was probably the worst kind of candidate, no matter what party.
Why is that?
he no content. He was always, the only thing I had heard him harping on was millionaires buying up Montana. You shouldn't have to get to be a millionaire to get outside. And it's like a bowl of grits without any salt.
All right, thanks for the metaphor. All right, we're going to go to Marilyn. Marilyn, thanks for calling in.
Okay, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, too. Okay, granted, I wasn't happy about what Greg did, but I know this reporter has a history, and I kept believing that it was a setup. But be that as it may, I want to talk about what the Democrats have turned these races into. Okay, they hated Gianforte because he was a man of faith, and, you know, they'll scream separation of church and state. And when they don't even know their own history and know that 52 signers of the Constitution were men of faith. And they hated him because he was a businessman and he was prosperous. But I think the reason why they hated him because of that was because he hadn't given money to their causes. They love their rich politicians, but they hate ours. So you can't. And the fact that he was not a native of Montana. Well, a lot of us have fled these liberal states that these Democrats have turned into Marxist, statist, socialist, and we've come to Montana, and now they're trying to do it to Montana, and we're not having it, and so they tried to bash on Gianforte for that. And yeah, I really think, and the D's have taken away our timber, our mining, our coal, and they're working on ag, and they just want to destroy the economy in Montana, and we wanted a man who was wanting to make Montana great again. Yeah, and he's going to go back there and work with Trump, not against Trump. And I think the guy had everything going for him. He better not go there and become a rhino. I'll be the first one to call him out on that. So,
all right. Hey,
yeah.
I'm going to try to get some more callers in before my break. Thanks for your call, Marilyn. All right, let's go to Candy. Candy, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. And Adam is there?
Yes, he is.
Hi, Adam. I wanted to point out two things. I'm stealing from Mike Gallagher's show on this. I heard a comment about this as a referendum on the media in Montana, and I think he's right that Montanans aren't buying the BS. So I should say to the Missoulian, stop printing BS and fake news. And the other thing, I think we learned in Montana now that maybe this absentee ballot isn't such a good thing and a convenient thing and drive everybody back to the polls. And I think at one time Trump was noted for his street fighting ability. So, thank you.
Thanks for your call.
Yeah.
We're going to take a call from Cade. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, sir. How are you?
Hey, I was just disappointed that I never saw the headline yesterday that it was the pothead versus the hothead. Just wanted to make that comment.
I bet you there's so many reporters regretting not being able to use that headline. I bet it got quashed in the editor's desk. Let's go to Andy. Thanks for your call, Kate. Andy, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. All along, Gianforte has said he was Trump's man, and Trump is, in my mind, the biggest bully in the land. We saw his bullying during the debates, and I think it's really discouraging that Gianforte couldn't control himself, and it doesn't bode well for the nation. The bullying, and you guys have talked about it here on the show, about the bullying in our schools. So now we've got two people voted in by Montanans that are excessive bullies, in my opinion. And how can we expect bullying in our schools to go down when we have these role models?
Let me ask you this. Do you think that this says something negative about Montana? As far as a state, the way that we vote, do you think we're propping up violence or something like that?
Well, I think it was the incident happened too late in the campaign. I think most people, I heard 70% of the votes were already cast by mail-in ballot, so I don't think it really had a big effect. No, it doesn't. There's hotheads from every walk of life in every state. It's just unfortunate that we have hotheads such as Trump and Gianforte representing us, because the bullying in schools is getting worse and worse and worse, and these are the role models that these kids are looking at.
So, Andy, I haven't heard anybody respond to the apology statement by Gianforte. Were you able to hear that earlier on in the show?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, he did apologize to the reporter, and I just wanted to get your take. It seems to me that that's a marked difference from Trump's behavior of not apologizing.
Well, true enough. Yeah, he's not anybody. He wouldn't apologize for anything, I don't think, no matter how egregious. I consider Trump's bullying of the women. If he's a star, he can grope them, and that's bullying too. And of course, he doesn't apologize for that, other than to say that he didn't realize he was being recorded.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for your call, Andy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
We got to go to a break. We'll be back in just a second. Give us a call at 721-1290 if you want on the air. Before I do that break, though, real quick, Adam, you made an interesting observation earlier when we were off the air about how Nick and I were both saying that he didn't really give us much details about what he was sorry for, and you said that was probably for a good reason.
Well, I mean, I kind of figured this is probably going to turn into a civil lawsuit at some point, and so I would imagine that there's some detail held back in that apology just to kind of hedge that civil lawsuit. It's I guess an unfortunate legal climate that we live in.
It's a question of how many zeros he wants to add into this apology.
I think that could be the case. And going back to some of the comments here, I mean, I think both the reporter and Greg Gianforte were at some fault here. I mean, I've never been badgered by the media. It's the media's job to ask tough questions, and I think it's politicians' jobs to answer tough questions. And maybe I've never been badgered because I answer tough questions, whether it's going to hurt me or help me, because I think it's just you need to be straight up honest with your constituents and with voters. But also, I think
it's the straight up honest part that most politicians struggle with.
Exactly. And the national media is different than the local media. I mean, John asked me a tough question. I can put him in a headlock, and it's not going to make any headlines.
We keep a distance here. Plus, I know jiu-jitsu. We'll be back after a quick break with more of your calls and your insights on the election yesterday. And Adam raised an interesting question, and I think it's one on a lot of people's mind. My sister asked me a question, and I responded in a similar way to you, which is this a sign of a bully, this attack on this reporter just 2 days ago? Or is it a sign, as you mentioned, of something different?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. This is not a pattern of behavior, right? Greg Gianforte does not have a criminal record. There's not a pattern here. There's not a bunch of people coming out saying, "Oh, the same thing happened to me," or this or that. I mean, I think it's a regrettable incident that he obviously regrets and apologizes for. But I don't think this is indicative of somebody who's a bully or even a hothead.
Well, and I just don't know the guy, right? I know him. I've met him. I've had him in studio. I've talked to him before, but I never worked for him. I don't know what it's like to work under him. Sometimes it's like this where you have an individual who has no criminal record, and then all of a sudden you find all this stuff that's been kind of underneath the surface for a long time. And that's the question for a lot of them. It's a question for me. Like, is this is there a history here that we just haven't heard about? Or is this the one extreme example on an exhausted night of going a little bit too far and trying to get your own personal space? I don't know.
I think that's exactly what it is, and I'm not excusing that behavior by any means, but I don't think it's a pattern of behavior. And I think if it were, it's a pattern that you would have heard people come out of the woodwork to say, "Oh, the same thing happened to me." I mean, he's been in contact with enough people. He's been an employer of enough people that if he were truly a bully or a hothead, I think it's something that would have come out. And so I think you hit the nail on the head of exactly what it was. It's a regrettable incident.
All right, let's go to Kelly. Kelly, you're on the air. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I do not condone what happened with Greg over there. I do think it was unfortunate. One thing about it, I know CNN's maybe listening or monitoring what's going on there. I wonder how many people know, the indignant thing they're saying about, reporters being attacked, things like that. A couple of days ago, one of the CNN hosts said that Trey Gowdy needed his ass kicked because he was asking questions in one of his things. Or I haven't heard any CNN being indignant about that. I guess it's all right to say that a politician or a congressman should be wrapped up in that reporters. And I think that's just kind of a two-edged thing that the CNN especially, the one-sided way they look at things there.
Doesn't this kind of feel like high school? I feel like it's the Jocks versus Glee Club or something. It just seems so weird that reporters are against politicians now, and politicians, I guess there's always been that role for reporters. But we have to think of reporters as more than just some guy with an agenda or some gal with an agenda. It's also us. It's also our access as the public to what's going on in D.C. or Helena or wherever it might be. To me, and I'll be honest about this, to me the worst instance is when we as the public or reporters don't get access to our public officials. And maybe that's out of cowardice, like Mayor John Engen not wanting to come on and talk to the public, or maybe that's, your governor or your senator not wanting to come on. And frankly, usually the higher the position, the harder it is to get them to talk to the public. That's probably the biggest risk, not necessarily a punch or a
yeah. And I agree with you, John. And one thing about it is I was listening the day you had Rob Quist in the studio, and I heard his answers to it. And you and Peter both have said, that day he was answering things from his heart, and what he really believed in things, whether it was sanctuary cities, the guns, everything else. That most of that is not how Montana feels about things. But boy, like you guys said, after he went out there and did that, there was no access. You never heard anything from him again because the handlers made sure that wasn't going to come out anymore.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for your call. Let's go to Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, you're on the air.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to say, my congratulations to Fort Davy. At least you stood up like a man, and that is what Montana's supposed to have as a man. And all the people I talked to yesterday had, hey, it's long overdue that one of the reporters get their coming up. But that wimpy sucker, he was big enough to take on Fort Davy. Why didn't he punch him back? He's in Montana. This is the oldest Montana I used to know back before you kids were born.
I mean, isn't it kind of the honorable thing to turn the other cheek?
No,
I don't know. Someone famous said that.
I'll tell you what. When a man stands there that's built like Forte, if you pay attention to how he's built, you don't want to tick him off. And he says, "I'll talk to you later." He said, "Later, go talk to him." I listened to that, and that means later. Get that thing out of my face. And the guy didn't. He tossed him down, and he wasn't hurt. He still got his teeth. He broke his glass. I'll buy your glasses, but when you grow up, when you come to Montana, you might run into me because you'd have done the same thing. I'd have punched you in the running lights when I said leave. And this is a fact that it's time we have. You're hiring a man who stands up. Everybody I talked to thought that was a hell of a good idea.
All right,
and no matter what party the guy was from, they said this is long overdue. They need to bring some of these people in. It's be polite on both ends. Works both ways. A reporter should be polite to the candidate because they are constantly being berated by everybody and his dog. It's just like a rattlesnake. They generally don't bite, but if you stir on them long enough, they will bite you. And this is the same setup. You keep stirring on somebody, they're going to react. I don't care who it is.
All right.
Well, I think there's a big issue with the media right now.
Bye, Mike.
Nationwide, and I think it's a really important role that the media plays, obviously. But there's a huge distrust of the media, and rightfully so. I mean, there's been surveys out there, and research shows that by and large, folks who are journalists and reporters, by and large, are left wing. And so there's a big distrust, but I think it's important for our elected officials to challenge the media, not physically and not berating them necessarily like Trump does, but to challenge them intellectually. I mean, really, I think it's important that if you're being asked tough questions, that you own them, that you give the answers that you truly believe and that the public deserves to hear. And I think, maybe some of the lack of honesty in politicians, and not maybe, I'm certainly some of the lack of honesty and openness in politicians is just as at fault for this whole mess as the media is. I mean, I think it's really important that they be challenged intellectually. And I think there's a lot of politicians who are afraid to do that.
Yeah, I think what the problem is you have so many politicians on their own enclaves where they don't really have to do shows like Talkback and hear from different points of view and get questions from all kinds of sides, where it's really comfortable to just talk to your own people.
Right.
And you have, certain talking points, and you go to your next group of people with the certain talking points, and you don't really have to be reflective or hear questions from another side of you. And it makes it almost too easy. in some sense, but it also makes it harder for the public to really distinguish, the gold from the dust in that sort of candidate choice. All right, we're going to go to a quick break, and then we've got Laura, Garth, Hazel, and Jerry. We'll get them in a row coming up. All right, we're back on the Talkback Show, waiting for calls. We're going to get Laura in the queue. Laura, thanks for calling in. You're on the air.
Hi, fellas. Good morning. First, I just have a few comments. I wanted to say, Adam, I was happy to vote for you in the last election. Glad to have you. I wanted to say regarding the question on Greg's apology that I felt that the timing was appropriate without knowing exactly what, they were thinking or they were accomplishing. In my opinion, I felt it was okay to wait a day because, first of all, he was going to be criticized either way, no matter when he apologized. If he was apologizing yesterday, he probably would have been criticized for, trying to make sure that he was getting those votes and, kissing tush, so to speak. I also wanted to say that regarding the bullying narrative, Andy's take, which he brought up about this being supporting the bullies in our schools, I wanted to say I've worked in our public schools, and that if this situation happened in school, both boys would be ticketed or cited or green-slipped, and based on the fact that one boy poked, provoked, prodded the other boy, and it resulted in a violent action, I have to say that administrative eyes would be on bent. And that neither of these guys would probably go on any kind of a bullying list based on this interaction. I also wanted to say that we need to remember that mainstream media is a business. They are in the business of keeping our attention, keeping viewers, keeping ratings, keeping dollars. And I think we need to keep that in mind. And then one more comment, and I'll let the rest of the folks talk. This is absolutely the best show available as far as news or comments or hearing what the people have to think. And, John, I've been listening to the show for, 15 years, however long it's been on. And I just wanted to make a comment that I really miss when you guys would occasionally put out some of the previous comments from some of these great shows that you guys have where, different callers make great points or have something thought-provoking to say. And I just wanted to kind of put a thought in there that maybe you guys will do that again sometime.
So you want us to go dig into the treasure trove of comments?
Well, not necessarily. You don't have to go back 10 years or anything, but, whether they're funny sometimes or just really having something sensible to say, somebody using evidence-based reasoning, even something from this week or, whatever. It just, they were fun, and they, I think, promoted making sure you checked in with your show.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much.
Yeah. Keep it up.
Right.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Talk to you later. Go ahead.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate your support, and you articulated a point that I tried to make. You articulated it way, way better, which I think is, both people are to some degree at fault here, and I think you articulated that really well. I appreciate that.
Let's go to Garth. Garth, you are on the air.
Good morning, fellas. Yeah, I think I just wanted to say I was proud to vote for Gianforte. And I ran into, 3 or 4 people yesterday while I was at work that voted for him because of this incident. Wait, they're like, oh, I got to vote for him now. Yeah, because of this. They're like, I wasn't going to vote, but I'm voting now. Which, but what I see is, going back to this mail-in ballot thing, wasn't it, if I remember right, the Democrats that were really pushing it here in Montana for an all mail-in ballot system for this?
The governor and Democrats were strongly in favor of.
Yeah, we're strongly in favor of it. And now listen to them. It didn't go their way, and now we're hearing them crying and screaming and yelling that they didn't get to change their ballots. Well, like the guy said before, the rules are the rules, and they wanted this. But
it is a little ironic. I'm not going to.
It is a little ironic, but going to the polls. I told the people at the polls yesterday, this is half the fun. I love going to the polls.
Yeah,
it takes me back.
There is a nice sense of community, but of course not everybody can go to the
polls. Yeah, well, I understand that, but it just reminds me of growing up as a little kid. You go to the lunchroom and you see all the little polls set up in the auditorium there, and you're always wondering, what are they doing? They're voting. It just always takes me back to when I was in grade school, so I always enjoy going to the polls. But it just reminds me of that this whole thing, I think they're giving him the reporter a little too much credit. I think he had an agenda. I think it was purposeful. I think it was done on purpose. Look at the timing.
Thanks for your call, Garth.
Yep.
Talk to you later. All right, let's get Hazel on real quick. Hazel, thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Hi. I agree with Laura and most of the folks that have called in, and I thank you for your wonderful program. Now, I think that Greg's apology was just fine and humble. My husband and I stayed up and listened to it last night. But, of course, his enemies will not be satisfied. And I just thought, well, how about the reporter apologizing for trespassing and disrupting the meeting? The folks at his rally, Greg's rally last night, yelled their forgiveness, and I'm wondering why we can't do the same. That's my comment.
Thanks for your call.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
I think it's going to be a rough year and a half if we don't move forward from this incident. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens, whether the Democrats are just, this is like ongoing, constant, day after day.
I tell you what, this is, of course, the next election is next year.
Right. It's going to be an election issue, no doubt, in 2018, but it's just...
And the Greg Gianforte's temper is going to be an election issue.
Absolutely.
Sure. I can't see a way around it. Even if there's a settlement, just the audio that you have from that initial interaction is going to play a role in the next election.
But I'm hopeful he'll be able to do his job and serve Montanans rather than being distracted by, a news story, an ongoing news story for the next year and a half.
Yeah, I hope that he keeps his promise, which I think he will, and comes on Talkback regularly as he said he would, which I'm pretty sure he will, although I haven't heard from him yet today. I'm still holding. I got like 7 more minutes, Greg. You can call in anytime, 721-1290. Let's take a call from Tim. Tim, you're on the air.
I'm like, unfortunately, I can't fault Greg because I had a situation about a year ago where I was a little bit of a hothead myself because my wife and I had a pre-planned vacation, and her boss literally canceled it the day before, and it was actually on our anniversary. And thank goodness for my wife holding me back because I was about ready to kill him. And it's just like, so I don't blame him for being a hothead because it's just like, that's a normal human being reaction. Should he have done it? No. It's just like, but it's just sad. And I hope it doesn't become an election issue. However, I think it is going to become one, especially like you guys are just talking about, because you look at, the Democrats literally had ads on it the morning, the election day morning. I mean, I was literally watching them on TV and listening to them on, like, Instagram and YouTube. And it's just like, he's a human being. And, it's sad that the whole situation happened, but, I'm glad he's going to Congress because we need somebody strong there.
Thanks for, by the way, if you haven't seen, the Drudge headline features Greg's face, and then above it says, "Fighting for Montana."
Well,
so, I mean, you're going to see this meme pop up. They're all over the place now. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry, you're on the air. Thanks so much for calling in.
Good morning, gentlemen. I think all of us, most of us, would probably agree it's never, ever acceptable to put your hands on somebody else. But in real life, who of us have not lost their temper and then later on regretted it? I mean, growing up as an adult, you lose your temper. You do something you regret, and you just have to move on. And I think you're exactly right. I don't think the Democrats will ever let go of it, but who of us hasn't lost our temper once and done something we regret?
I think it's a good point. It's like the public is always saying, well, politicians need to be human, they need to be human, and then a politician acts like a fallible, sinning human, and then, suddenly...
Yeah, but when we say be human, we're not saying physically assault people or tweet pictures of yourself to girls or commit crimes.
I'm not excusing
we want you
any
to be
of that.
Honest and open.
I'm not excusing any of that, but I mean, it was a human reaction, and humans react poorly oftentimes, but I don't think it's a pattern of behavior.
I think that your view of human nature is very original sin sort of human nature. All right, let's go to our next caller. Let's see. Frank, you're on the air.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make one comparison that I haven't heard anybody else make, and that's with these type of reporters are just like the paparazzi. They invade your space. They're in your face. They're obnoxious. And yet when the liberals have one of their liberal elite, an actor, a singer, or whatever, take a paparazzi's camera and break it or shove it in their face or shove them. They're cheering these people on. But when it comes to being a conservative politician, then we got to throw them in jail. And I just hadn't seen that comparison between this type of reporting and the paparazzi. To me, they're the same exact thing, and I'm glad the guy got shoved out of the way.
All right. Well, hey, let me ask you this: do you think Greg should try to bring charges, if there are any? Because if you listen to the audio, this is a private room. You shouldn't be here. That sort of thing. Do you think he should try to pursue anything?
I definitely think it could have been handled a little bit different, but just like somebody said before, this is Montana, and sometimes we act badly, and they both acted badly, and Greg won the fight, but he's probably going to lose the battle in the public commentary. But I don't think either one of them should bring charges against the other. Neither one of them got hurt, and the kid's just a wuss. If he would have tripped and fallen and done the same thing and broke his glasses, same injuries, nothing, But we always got to sue somebody in this litigious society we got now.
Well, we don't actually have a lawsuit yet, as far as I know. The sheriff's deputies are the ones that filed the charges, not the individual here. But hey, thanks for your call.
But he wanted to call the cops.
He did want to call the cops. Yes, that's
so that's
true.
fine. All right.
All right. Thank you. Norm, you're on the air.
Yeah, everybody keeps calling Greg a bully. Well, bullies do not apologize. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for your call, Norm.